Both fam, let's ride. Both fam, let's ride. Both fam, let's ride. Mic'd up, let's ride. Hella smooth though. Let's ride.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. As you can see, we are resting two of our starters today. It's not something that the Chargers decided to do, but we'll get to that at some point. Alex is packing. Steven is sick. So it's just Arjun and I today. Arjun, man, how are you?
Doing all right. First Chargers game back in Michigan, and I gotta say it wasn't kind of what I wanted it to be. I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but yeah, I mean, I'm just glad we got into the playoffs like relatively healthy, but obviously the big fish is is limping right now.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I do want to start today's show. We do have to talk about the Brandon Staley experience today because there are definitely some things to discuss.
Yeah.
But I want to start with the positives because, like you said, the Chargers are the 5th seed in the postseason, which no qualifiers is outstanding. I mean, outside of winning the division, this is literally the best they could have had after that. And the Chargers are there despite being a very injured, beat up team. Yes, they did lose today. Yes, they did get tons of help, but they did make the 5th seed. And they have a game in Jacksonville next week. So that is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. They making the playoffs, obviously, with the super injured roster is an accomplishment in itself. They were pretty much on a huge win streak heading into this week, and like I don't know if they were trying or like I mean, it did seem like they were trying playing all the starters, and it didn't look great from the defensive side of the ball, but offense they look great. So I do feel confident about their chances going to Jacksonville, even without Mike Williams. But I think for the most part, it comes down to Herbert, and Herbert's looked great since the Chiefs game. And I think outside of the Colts game where I think he was, I think his production, just his play overall was hurt by pressure, quick pressure especially. I think he's been great in almost every single game. He hasn't been the reason we've lost games. He's been the reason we've won games. And he's really kept us in a lot of games. So I think Herbert's been great, and I think again the Chargers only go as far as he takes them. So I feel pretty good about the Chargers going to the playoffs. Obviously, we'll discuss what happened today.
Yes, we definitely will. Right now, Justin Herbert, who has passed Dan Marino, Joe Lombardi for the most touchdowns through 3 seasons, I believe, is the record. So fantastic there. People were concerned that they'd pull an Anthony Lynn and not let Herbert get the touchdowns or the record. Turns out they did the opposite and they kept him in. But 2 touchdowns this game, 2 touchdowns last game. If you're really talking about momentum and looking for positives in this game heading into the postseason, it really is the way the offense, at least in terms of the quarterback and the coordinator, I feel like I've played the last couple of weeks, or obviously called plays the last couple of weeks. 31 points last week, 28 today, albeit one of them was, a Chase Daniel touchdown, which was cool, I guess. That happened today. But it really feels like if you're looking at the way the calls are being called and the way the quarterback is trying to execute those calls, it looks fantastic. Yeah. The Chargers only scoring 20 with Herbert today was not 1 second because of Justin Herbert. It was because of, 2 fumbles, 2 drops on 3rd down, 2 drops where, Herbert hit him right in the hands. Granted, Carter's catch was a bit more difficult, but like
got to make that.
You got to make those plays. Exactly. You got to make those plays. And in the postseason, 1 loss in your route. So those plays matter. But just looking at the way Justin Herbert performed, it was outstanding. I thought just like last week, everyone was saying, oh, did Brandon Staley get in Joe Lombardi's ear? Did Brandon Staley make Lombardi make these calls? The calls were exactly the same overall to me. You didn't see anything all that different. You still saw a toss. You still saw screens. You still saw play action. You saw basically the same things. You even saw stick a couple of times. It's just the way that they're called, maybe some of the dressing. Of course, execution has been better the last couple of weeks. The offensive line has been better, but it feels like the timing, has been better. It's less awkward, less clunky. So with Herbert, and yes, with the way the calls are being called, if you can get me in 6-ish quarters, 31 points 1 week, 20 the next week, and really 28 if you include Chase Daniel, like that's pretty solid. Like 6 quarters of Justin Herbert football, you get 51 points. It's not great, but something like that can get you in the postseason, especially if you play, another quarter and a full game.
Yeah, and I think the thing to note is like the Jags offensively haven't been good for like at least a month, like or at least since the Cowboys game. The Jets game on prime time, like that's a very tough matchup. They didn't, put up many points, only scored 19 points. I think Lawrence was great in that game, but again, the production at the end of the day is what you're kind of like evaluating. They just haven't been that impressive to me. Like they were low key in a dogfight with Houston last week. Lawrence didn't have that great of a game. And then this past week, I mean, everyone could see like Lawrence struggled here and there, missing on a couple of throws. So, on one hand, we have Herbert kind of like just peaking, ascending right now, getting healthier, getting his guys back. And Lawrence is kind of on the downturn, or just he hit his peak and it feels like he hasn't been able to get above that yet. So again, I think the Chargers, for the most part, with Lombardi and Herbert, have found a groove when all of their guys have been healthy. Offensive line was pretty good today, especially in pass pro. I don't think Herbert was hit very often or sacked very often. And yeah, it just comes down to cleaning up the mistakes. Like Herbert hasn't really made many mistakes. Again, the Titans interception was pretty much the only interception where I could really say it was on him, right? And that one was definitely on him. But like the Colts interception was really just off Everett. And again, like Everett had another like bad drop today, which could have resulted in a first down. So again, everyone who watches the Chargers understands that their production comes because of Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And usually, not all the time, but usually when it fails, it's not because of Herbert. And like that's not me being a homer. That's just, if you watch like the games, you'll see he is making these tight window throws that very few quarterbacks can make, and it's being dropped, and it's wide open balls are being dropped. So that kind of just sums up the season for the Chargers, that Herbert does a lot of things right, and it just gets let down by a supporting cast. And even today is the defense allowing 30 plus points to Russell Wilson with pretty much everyone healthy and starting. I mean, that's like almost like unacceptable.
Yeah, that was definitely the low light. Just for Justin Herbert, final box score, I'm surprised that he had at least 38 dropbacks, 37 attempts, and then of course sacked once. Was super clean. I don't recall a turnover-worthy play. I recall, honestly, I don't know how Pro Football Focus charts big-time throws, but like that throw to Donald Parham, which I don't think was a far throw by any means, but it was a perfect placement on that one to, of course, a tight end who's 6'9", was fantastic. Rolling right to DeAndre Carter, like that was basically a perfect ball. You can't do any better than that. But of course, Carter drops it. He looked really good. I don't recall an instance where I was like, I don't know if Herbert should have thrown that, or he just seemed like he was on the entire game. So, if the team was looking for momentum, and that's why they played some starters, or all of their starters, I should say, heading into the postseason, then you can feel good outside of the, Austin Eckler fumble, the DeAndre Carter fumble. You can feel good about where this offense is going moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I totally forgot about the DeAndre Carter fumble. That was like that one. The Chargers could have easily got 7 more points on that drive. So there was a lot of missed opportunities, I think, left on the play today. And again, you have to clean those up before you play Jacksonville, because you don't know what Trevor Lawrence you're going to get. If you get the bad Lawrence, you can get away with scoring 23 points like you do against the Dolphins and win that game. But if you get Cowboys Lawrence or Ravens Lawrence, like he's beaten good defenses before, then you have to be on your A game. And again, I expect Herbert to be on that A game. It's everyone else that I'm a little bit worried about. And if Mike's not able to go, DeAndre Carter as wide receiver 3 does worry me a little bit.
Yeah, definitely not a surprise, because they've been doing it, but dressing 4 wide receivers when all 4 of your receivers have been banged up this year, some longer than others, some for just in-game issues, some one-game issues. But of course, you have Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams, who have not been healthy this year, who haven't stayed healthy this year, despite coming back sometimes. To only address 4 is a bit concerning heading into the postseason, because I mean, you might be down to 3 all of a sudden, you might be down to 2 all of a sudden. And granted, you can't always prepare for those things. You can dress 6 and lose 4 in the same game, but only having 4 when you have a receiving core that's been so banged up is a bit puzzling. So if Mike Williams plays next week against the Jaguars, I could still see them dressing 5 just because of like an insurance policy, I suppose. I don't think you can rely on him to be out there the entire time. I know there's a report that there was, I think Pro Football Doc who used to work for the Chargers. He had his report that it was something back potentially related. If you guys in the chat have that, or Arjun, if you have that in front of you, that'd be great. I literally just got home. But so they seem to think he can make it for the postseason. It's just a back issue that he'll have to work through. I know Jameson Omar, who's been our guest on our show a couple of times, who's talked about he thought it was a back thing as well. So we'll see. When it initially happened, I didn't think much of it, but then you see that tunnel video that they had where he was in the tunnel and like he could barely move. And granted, like back injury, no joke. Of course, it's going to be really, really painful, but I mean, it just didn't look good. So we'll see. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to pretend like I know what happened, but didn't look great. If you have any update, Arjun, or if you know what that report is, feel free to share it.
Len said it in the chat, but it was a back hip contusion with possible back spasms. That's what Pro Football Doc. Okay, so also the thing with this guy, I know a lot of people hate him because of what he did with the Chargers. This report isn't just him; it's a panel of doctors.
Yeah.
So again, I'm always for wisdom of the crowd, and if a bunch of people are saying this, that obviously have way more expertise in this field than I do, I'm going to choose to believe it, even if it is bad news or good news. In this case, it is good news. They said, despite video of him limping into the locker room, Williams should not be hampered in the playoffs, according to our panel of doctors. So I think he should be fine. Obviously, we've heard kind of like Staley or even Anthony Lynn say like, oh, this is an injury that if it was a must-win game, he could have come back in the game. I don't think that's the case with back spasm. That's like a very, very painful thing. But I think with around-the-clock treatment heading into a playoff game, I don't think he really needs the reps anymore. He's been healthy for weeks now. I think, that is a case where you can get him, you can just get him back treatment all week and hopefully get him as healthy as possible heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, as far as the reports go, like you said, I don't know anything. You and I aren't here to diagnose these things. So we'll take that report. We'll work with it for now as if it is true. I'm sure we're going to hear that he's day to day and they're taking it day to day. That could be, he's back in one practice. He could be back in 10 practices. I don't know. But we'll just roll with it. I feel like that's positive, all things considered, because I really felt like once they were helping him off the field, that it was going to be really serious. Now the cart, people are bringing up the cart in the chat. Like that could be interpreted one of two ways. And I think it's really the lesser of two evils in this regard. I think it's just, hey, we have a cart. You can use the cart. You don't have to walk. And that's really what I felt like it was. But still, the optics in the middle of that game were not great. And as far as optics go, I guess we can get into it. It wasn't really great seeing the starters be out there for as long as they were. I understand, again, why you would want them to go out there for a couple series, a quarter even. Like, I know it's tough. You can't just end things at the quarter, obviously. But, you want to try to get your guys out there for about a quarter. And when Justin Herbert goes touchdown on the first drive, you could argue his defensive pass interference should have been on Mike Williams' second drive, but then touchdown again on the third drive. You go 2 for 3 for touchdowns in Denver. Looks absolutely clean. Line plays great. I believe at the time the run game was looking good. Everyone was catching everything. Like at that point, I feel like you could pull some guys. They didn't. And not only did they not pull any offensive guys, they didn't pull any defensive guys unless they were, hurt. And they played those guys for about 3 1/4 quarters, I suppose, a little bit into the fourth quarter. And then Keenan Allen got he got a touchdown from Chase Daniel because they didn't have enough receivers dressed. So Keenan Allen had to be in. So just overall, before I get into my thoughts, like what was your reaction to seeing the Chargers be out there and have their starters out there for so long?
Yeah, I mean, I hated it. I wanted them to do what the Bucs did today, where you play your starters 1.5 quarters and then they're out. That's what the Bucs did. They let Brady go down first drive touchdown, second drive something, and then punt, third drive field goal, and then they're done. You've seen enough. Herbert's been playing great ball. Keenan's been playing I gave a lot of shit to Keenan after the Raiders game, but he's stepped up in a huge way since then. Like, you don't need to see him in these type of games. You don't need to see Mike Williams in these type of games. I would have let them rest after the second touchdown. Now, I don't know, again, what the reasoning is. I haven't seen Papa or anyone tweet about Staley's press conference, but I was also equally as disappointed and just like baffled why they're so insistent on only activating 4 receivers for the game. I'm not the biggest Michael Bandy fan. I don't think he's that great, but come on, like especially in this game where at some point you're going to have to rest people. If you don't come into a plan trying to rest players in this game, then again, I don't know what the personnel decisions are. But if you don't come into this, you come into this game with 4 receivers, one goes down, you're forced to play Keenan Allen. Unless you run 12 personnel the rest of the game, you have to play Keenan Allen. Whereas if you activate Michael Bandy and you sit someone like Larry Roundtree, who who doesn't really matter, or I guess like you need 3 running backs. Like there's other moves to be made where you could have activated Bandy because you need 5 receivers. Like if you're going to sit Keenan Allen, but again, you're putting Keenan at risk. Like he's catching screen passes in the fourth quarter. That's how Mike got hurt.
Yep.
Like that's just like it's not smart. And again, they're very fortunate that Mike's really the only major injury that they saw that got whoever got hurt. But again, it comes back down to activating 4 receivers on game day. And this has been something we've been saying, I feel like, since week 1. So again, personnel decisions have kind of just been confusing ever since Staley took over. I think he's done a lot of great things as a coach. This is like one of the things I've never really understood about him.
Yeah, definitely funky for sure. As far as before the game, the Ravens-Bengals game, really, you didn't really know that the Ravens were going to lose till about 5 minutes left in that game. So as far as activations and them doing this as a dress rehearsal, everyone that's going to play in Jacksonville, is basically up and active as long as they're healthy. Totally get that. Like not seeing Isaiah Spiller, of course you'd want to see him, especially in a meaningless game. But they wanted to treat this as a dress rehearsal, and like he doesn't play special teams for them apparently, so he wasn't active. So from that perspective, I get it. Everything else after that was a bit of a disappointment for me because, we saw it almost consecutively. It was, first we saw it in the Bengals game, right? Like they were playing their starters because they had to. And in the span of about 5-10 minutes, it felt like, Boyd got hurt, Higgins got hurt, although they both returned. Alex Kappa got hurt, and then Cam Sample all got hurt in that game. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope that doesn't happen for the Chargers today. And of course, in like the end of first quarter, second quarter, whatever it was. Oh, okay, Joey's hurt. Oh, okay, Kenneth Murray has a stinger. Oh, Mike Williams is carted to the locker room. It's like, whoa, what are we doing here? And at that point, like if your plan was to go into the half and then you're going to pull your starters, I could that was like the last line of defense for me. For me, when it really all just broke down and where it really felt like the internet was breaking down because everyone was criticizing this, is in the second half. Once you're in the third quarter of a meaningless game, like, okay, you go into the game, you're on the field, maybe you're locked in, you play your guys, you go to halftime. Okay, Bengals definitely won. It's halftime. Offense looks good. Defense have been playing okay up to that point. Okay, like everyone's sitting, as best we can. But for them to have continued to have guys out there, and watch guys take hits. And I believe we lost Mike Williams in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Or was it the second quarter?
No, second.
Okay, second quarter. After watching those injuries, I felt like that would have been the great time to pull the guys. Like whatever your plan was, after watching Bosa, Kenneth Murray, and Mike Williams go down, granted 2 of them, even 2.5 of them seem to be okay. I think, okay, you know what? Let's stop taking what was the most injured roster in the league 2 weeks ago. Let's stop chancing fate. Let's stop tempting fate. Let's stop, playing with fire here and throwing our guys in. But instead, it's like, oh, Herbert, unnecessary roughness, free shot to his rib cage. And it's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get into this too much. Len gives us an update here about Mike Williams from Daniel Popper. He said Mike Williams had to be helped out of the locker room to the bus, could not walk on his own. I don't know if that changes anything regarding, what people are thinking about the back injury. I assume if it really hurt 30 minutes ago, it probably still hurts and he still needs help to, so it's not like it's going to go away today. But, this is where we're at. And again, like having Mike Williams out there, some guys that are banged up, taking shots like that or have been banged up this year, not great at all.
There was a comment who said, I think it was by Space Trooper, said it's feeling like Staley wanted 11 wins on his resume more than player safety. Look, Space Trooper, the Chargers win total before the season was 10.5, and they've gone under for the second straight year under Brandon Staley. Usually a decent way to measure how successful a coach or GM has been is literally just looking at how often they go over or under their win total, right? Like before this year, Mike Vrabel had gone over his win total every single year. Brandon Staley's 0-2 right now. So I'm not saying they look at things like that. I just thought that was a funny comment. But yeah, I don't really know what the incentive was to play people to try and win this game.
Yeah, there's definitely a moment where I could put on the tinfoil hat and be like, because I even tweeted it jokingly, like, 11 wins looks a lot better than 10 wins. 11 wins looks like 2 more wins than last year. So I could put on the tinfoil hat there. I'm going to choose not to. This isn't the first time that Brandon Staley has done this year. So it's not like this is a new thing. We saw him against Jacksonville in a game they were more banged up with a worse offensive line where Herbert was far more injured and they were losing guys left and right. They still kept Herbert out there in the fourth quarter, which again, he says that Herbert wants to stay out there with his guys. He's going to be out there with his guys. I get it. Being out there, being tough is kind of like a Chargers quarterback legacy, but
Yeah.
they did have the opportunity to pull him and they didn't. So I can't even really give them like the benefit of the doubt here because we've seen it against Jacksonville. 38-10 loss, still rolling those guys out there, still letting Herbert get hit. I forget how many, pressures or hits there were that game. But it was quite a bit. So not great. I'm not going to go to as far as to say that like Staley put his guys out there to try to pad his win total. I know some people will definitely go that direction. You might be 100% right, but I choose to not go the tinfoil hat route just yet. I don't know. Maybe Arjun, you do.
No, I'm not. I'm just pointing out that last week I said Chargers over 10 and a half wins was back on the table, but I didn't realize they were gonna move to underdogs in this game and everything. So
right,
it's whatever.
Yeah. So what I think is really worth discussing, I know again everyone wants to talk about the positives of the Chargers going into the postseason, but they did lose this game, and I do want to talk about not the reason they lost, but certainly, I guess it really is the reason they lost. It's the defense, and part of me wants to not put any stock into this because it was literally a meaningless game where it seemed like Bryce Callahan would have been healthy, but they decided to have Jaw Taylor out there. And of course, in the fourth quarter, and maybe a bit earlier than that for some players, they were pulling some players. So it's not like from start to finish for 60 minutes, the starting defense for the Chargers was out there. Nor do I feel like Brandon Staley went through his usual designer blitz packages.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like anything complex was out there today. But against the Rams, they were the second worst run defense in EPA per play, and the third worst in success rate allowed against the run that game. It really felt like the Falcons game to me, in a sense, where the box score didn't show as bad as the defense might have played. Thankfully, they got up by 21 points, and so there wasn't a whole lot for the Rams to do at that point. But something was definitely off, and you could see it at the beginning of that game.
Yeah.
Today, you saw it throughout basically the entire game. So Russell Wilson finished only 13 completions, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 118 passer rating. The Denver Broncos rushed for 205 yards, including 15 carries for 103 yards, almost 7 yards a carry for Latavius Murray. Jerry Jeudy got 3 touches today for almost 40 yards. Chase Edmonds, 9 carries, 45 yards. So as a whole, if you want to include Russell Wilson rushing 205 yards, 5.7 yards per carry. But, you look at last week, you look at the week before, you even look against the Titans, teams are finding ways, and I really thought they exposed this against the Rams, really exposed this last week. They're finding ways to get Chargers players to be forced to tackle in the open field, whether that's running outside, screens, short passes, whatever. And I feel like that killed them last week. And today, because they could be consistent throughout the entire game, the Broncos really brought that home on the Chargers. There wasn't a lot the Chargers were able to do. Again, not with their entire defense out there, not with the designer blitz packages I'm used to seeing, but in terms of pure execution and comparing what they've done before, where it was also concerning last week, and then really just looking at the entire season and what's concerned you the entire time, it's a bit worrisome heading into the postseason because the opponent you're about to play is Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, and the Jaguars, who had a response to every single thing Brandon Staley wanted to do that week. Granted, Joey Bosa got hurt. I believe JC was either in and out of that, or I think he missed that game.
He missed,
he missed that game, which I don't know if that's better or worse. But Doug Peterson had an answer for everything Brandon Staley wanted to do, and there was nothing the defense could do to stop them. On the ground, through the air, nothing. And so coming off of that last game against the Rams and what we saw, and then this game here, I'm concerned for the defense heading into the postseason. How do you feel?
I'm pretty worried about the run defense. I never really thought it was fixed. I just think they just played some bad rushing offenses. Like, I know the Titans have Derrick Henry, but statistically, that's not a great rushing offense. They have the worst offensive line in the NFL. Dolphins don't have that great of a rushing attack. Colts don't have that great of a rushing attack. Like, they never really played any great rushing offenses. What I did feel good about and what I tweeted about this past week is the Chargers' pass defense has been amazing, right? Number one in EPA per dropback allowed since week 9, which is their bye. And like they had limited explosive plays. Like early in the season, I felt like the Chargers couldn't stop the run, and not only were they bad against the pass, they were allowing explosive plays, and that was the one thing that Brandon Staley builds his defense on, that you don't allow explosive plays. Now they've been very good at that, I think, since week 9. But today felt like a step back, where it was like Jerry Jeudy's running wide open down the field, Cortland Sutton running wide open down the field, and it's just like, what's going on? And I do think there's probably some motivation issues there, just like no one really cares about it, or maybe Justin Alden was actually like scheming guys open. But for the most part, I'm not like too worried about the pass defense. I think especially against the Jags, a lot of their stuff is more horizontal than vertical, and it's more about yak than like air yards. I really Trevor Lawrence has had some great deep balls here and there, but again, I feel like it is more of a horizontal offense, which is designed to get guys in open space, allowing them to make stuff happen after the catch, which again is a problem for the Chargers. And I mean, I think Michael Davis to me has been amazing. I think personally he's been the best defender on the team since the bye week. I'd be comfortable saying that. I don't think
I don't mind that at all.
he was, I mean, great today again. I think he had like 3 or 4 pass breakups, or at least like incompletions forced. On the other side, Asante hasn't been that great. I think to close out the year, he was kind of bad today. Jasir Taylor, I think you brought up a great point in one of your tweets that like teams it feels like they only run when he's on the field. But today the Broncos passed, and they had, I think it was Cortland Sutton down the field, or it might have been Jerry Jeudy. So Doug Peterson, you ask any smart football guy, will tell you like he's one of the best in the league at like prevent or at attacking opponent weaknesses. So I know Jasir Taylor might be a better run defender than Asante Samuel, but putting him on the field and you line him up against a Christian Kirk or a Zay Jones, like I do think Doug Peterson will try to scheme open some touches for them. And look, I think Taylor could have a bright future and everything, but as of right now, he is a liability in pass coverage whenever he steps on the field.
Yeah, there are so many things Jasir Taylor has done well this year, and even in moments, he almost had a pick 6 last week against the Rams. There are definitely moments where you can tell like this guy has a bright future. He's going to be good in this league, but the whole taking Asante Samuel Jr. off the field thing has been awkward, but they've kind of made it work because they haven't really faced a quarterback who can pick on, Jaw Taylor like that, or even having receiving weapons that could pick on Jaw Taylor like that. And I believe it was the first time they did it against the Titans. I said, listen, there's a point in the season where somebody smart is going to pick on Jaw Taylor in coverage, because that's a 6th round rookie. And all respect to him, he might be an excellent slot corner or outside corner one day. But if I'm at a point where I can isolate one-on-one my best receiver, let's say it's Stephon Diggs in the postseason, or it's Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in the postseason, and you want to put out Jaw Taylor against those guys, fine by me. I won't run it. I'm going to throw it straight at that guy. And today they got him for at least 50. I don't know if there are any others in there. As far as his coverage, I don't know, because they're interchangeable, both him and Asante Samuel Jr. So I don't know what the numbers were in the end, but someone's going to take advantage of that. And of course today, and it's just Russell Wilson and the Broncos, somebody did. So I think Brandon Staley is playing with fire with that one. Asante Samuel Jr., not a great game. I do love your point that Michael Davis has been their best defender since the bye. I don't hate that. If he's not been the best, he's the second best behind Drew Tranquil, maybe. Otherwise, Michael Davis, as far as what he's been able to do week after week after week after week after week, did he allow a catch today? I don't know. I don't recall if he did or not. I certainly, and at least if me not remembering if he did or not is good. Do you have the numbers in front of you?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay, yeah, no worries. So Michael Davis has been fantastic. So what they do in the postseason, we'll see. But today, what I want to see the Chargers do is, get the defense out there for a little bit, because this is the first time in a while they're playing legit off, weapons in the NFL. Again, no offense to the other guys that they faced, but like the Titans had nobody. The Colts had Nick Foles throwing. Like this was like the first, quote unquote, real offense they'd faced in a while. Granted, they're not very good. And someone like Jerry Jeudy, I think if you're Doug Peterson looking at Christian Kirk, then looking at Jerry Jeudy, you think, Judy had 154 yards today receiving. He had almost 40 yards rushing. Could I do that with Christian Kirk against the Chargers next week? Yeah, you bet your ass I'm going to do that. So we'll see how that goes. If you have the numbers in front of you, go for it.
Yeah. So Davis got targeted 6 times, allowed 2 catches for 27 yards, and a touchdown, which I'm not sure which one.
I can't think of which one that was.
The tight end touchdown was not him. Well, it could have. They might have just gave him the screen pass, maybe, because it was on his side.
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. That's lame.
I can just let me just double check which one it was. It was the touchdown in the 4th quarter. So yeah, I think it was the screen pass, right?
Oh, to the guy who had his first game ever or whatever.
Yeah.
Who like tiptoed down the sideline. Oh,
it was the one in the 4th quarter. So guys, whichever one that is.
Oh wait, I see. It's to Cortland Sutton. I can't think of which one that is.
Oh,
I've already forgotten the game. Apparently, okay. But still, 26 yards. Great.
Yeah,
fine.
I can give the O-line stats also. So
great.
Pretty right off the bat, very, very clean game. Zion 1, Sawyer 1, Filer 1, Pipkins and Lindsley 0. Another clean slate for Lindsley, which it feels like he does that almost every week.
It's disgusting, man. Corey Lindsley has I don't know if you have it in front of you, but I think he's like at 5 pressures allowed the entire season.
He might be.
It's disgusting how good Corey Lindsley's been in terms of pass protection, man.
And then
let's hear it.
In terms of our pass rush, Bosa 5 leads the team, Van Noy 4, Joseph Day 3, Mac 3, Kenneth, Moa, and Fox 2, and then Hinton just here with 1.
Okay, so Joey Bosa. Wait, he had 5? How many snaps did he play?
Yeah, 5 on 11 pass rushes.
Oh my gosh.
50%, little 50% pressure rate pretty much, which is really nice.
My goodness, Joey Bosa's got 5 already. That's insane. I don't know how many were cleanup, but he had some really good 2 cleanup. Okay, so 3 pressures, 2 cleanup. But still, man, 5 pressures from a game where he played 11 pass rush snaps. That's pretty good. That's really, really good. That's awesome. Yeah, Sebastian Joseph Day had an interception, man. Was really hoping for a big man return for a pick 6 sort of thing. But can't get everything you want, I guess.
Maybe that would have helped to get the starters set for the offense.
Yeah, no. What else did we have today? Kyle Van Noy had his 5th sack in a row after also tipping that pass basically to Sebastian Joseph Day. So another outstanding one from him. Again, a lot of positives. Just going into the postseason, a little bit worried about this defense. We won't take too much longer on this because there wasn't a whole lot more to talk about because it was just kind of a meaningless game. I'm over the starters, playing for as long as they were a thing. At this point, it's irrelevant. Staley was pissed at the presser, says Get Money. Interesting. Did you guys see that Brendan Staley was annoyed at the presser? And I'm curious, was it because people were asking him why they kept the starters out there, or because he thought his defense played poorly? I don't know. We'll see, man. Like I really have not felt strongly positive about this defense because I feel like it's been fool's gold the last few weeks. Today is certainly very concerning, but I mean, we'll see in playoffs when everything is on the line. Can you hold Doug Peterson, the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk to 24? I think is kind of what we're looking for here, hopefully. So we'll see. Everyone's saying that Staley was very defensive. Interesting. Agitated with questions aimed at him. I have to watch it, so I'm not gonna judge him.
I don't know what he was expecting. Player starters. Look, Brian Dable sat everyone. He sat Saquon. He sat Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton. He sat a lot of people. Isaiah Hodgins, I think. So, I mean, there is a precedent that if you have your seed locked up and you're not, especially if you're not even playing for home field, you sit your starters, right? So, I mean, he did something out of the ordinary, I think.
Yeah, and then again, this was the second time at least that it's happened this year. Once against the Jaguars, now here. So I don't know. Well, luckily, guys did get their bonuses. It seemed DeAndre Carter, I believe. I think Everett got his as well with a touchdown catch, or at least the yards from it. Let's see. Austin Eckler passed Keenan Allen for most receptions in franchise history. I believe he's now at 118 receptions for 42 yards, but he's definitely getting there. So that's really good. Hopefully that picks up in the postseason. But yeah, no, I mean, good for Austin Eckler, man. Like I think he's approaching or has passed now 300 touches on the season heading into the postseason, which once again would have been a reason to not play him, but he looks pretty solid today outside of that fumble. He has 5 fumbles on the season, which isn't great. His career high before that was 4. So hopefully just get it out of your system now. But you do worry because last year his fumbles started to pick up the more carries it got. Maybe that's a coincidence, but it's also like you can tell the workload is there. Today, passing 300 total touches, got smacked at one point near the red zone. And then later in the game, he fumbles. So I don't know. We'll see. But overall, I don't know. Any final takeaways from this one? I do want to turn it over to the chat for about 5-10 minutes. See any questions that they have, but really any final thoughts on this game overall?
Nah, only thing I could really take away is like Justin Herbert's. I mean, he's the guy. So if whatever the team goes as far as he takes him, I've said that so many times, but again, he played great today, and I think it's a good thing like seeing him play that way heading into the playoffs on the road.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as one, I agree with that because Justin Herbert looked amazing. 2, as far as the injuries go, it seems like the Chargers, at least for playing a whole game, look, we've been used to them losing 2 to 3 guys per game. If Mike Williams is indeed okay for the postseason, I think you're feeling pretty good, especially on the turf that seemed to make everybody slip, slide, and fall all over. That seemed really dangerous today. So, overall, even though they played guys for longer than they should have, it seems like they got away with, a pretty clean bill of health, I hope. But again, we'll definitely see.
Yeah.
Alrighty, everyone in the chat for about 5-10 minutes. If you guys have any questions, we'll answer those. A lot of questions about, Mike Williams' health or some other players. I don't really know at this point. I'll have to wait till I'm off the stream to get any of that. Arjun, could you do me a favor just so I can type it into the chat? Could you tell me again the pressures allowed by the offensive line and then the pressures generated?
Yeah, pressures allowed. Zion, Filer, and Pipkins all with 1, and Lindsley and wait, what did I say? I said
Lindsley and Sawyer 0?
Yeah, Lindsley and Pipkins 0.
Sawyer was the one.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just type that in the chat for people that want to know. Again, these are, of course, unofficial, but we appreciate Arjun for getting these in. Lindsley, if I can type. So, if I'm not mistaken, Trey Pipkins is allowed like 2 pressures in like 4 weeks. I know Steven knows. Steven's in the chat. Steven, type in it. I know you know. But as far as pressures allowed, that's not bad. Any pressures allowed by the tight ends?
No, I think it was just the 3 by, or there might have been 1 by the tight ends. Might get updated, but just
okay. Does Zion have a pass blocking efficiency right now because it was unofficially? I don't know if they have that yet.
Yeah, they have it as,
on the season.
Oh, on the season. No, it'll be unofficial, so it's like it won't be calculated yet.
Okay, what's it today? Just out of curiosity.
98.9.
Okay, that's really good. So, yeah, because Zion's PBE heading into this game was 97, and I think over the last 2 or 3 years, only like 2 guards have had a better one. Rookies have had a better one playing as many snaps, at the 50% snap cutoff. So that's good. It's not good compared to the all pros in the league, but as far as rookie goes in the rookie curve, not bad. Great. Okay. C. Roy is saying that, or Croy, sorry, that Bosa is okay per the Chargers. Great. If you see something, if anybody sees something in the chat, let me know. It really does seem like he's okay. Like of all the guys that were hurt, Joey Bosa, there was no injury designation. He had his helmet on. You didn't even see a play where he got hurt. He just kind of like called himself off the field, which is good. I'm glad he did that because there was no reason to continue. Okay, a couple questions here. One from Gabriel 5718. Do you think that the Chargers were using preseason game plans, and did you think the altitude affected our guys? What do you think, Arjun?
I don't think the altitude had much of an impact. They were playing well on offense. Defense played well at times. It's just I think the explosive plays. I don't really know what using the preseason game plan means because they didn't rest any starters. And this might have been Joe Lombardi's like one of his best games as an offensive coordinator this season. So I definitely don't think it was a preseason game plan. I don't really know what their offense is at this point. So I'm just going to say if it was good or bad based on production and how it looked and how not hunky they were.
Yeah, Potentially. I'm sure it wasn't great to be out there, but yeah, no, I'd agree with you. The only thing that really seemed to get them this time was the run game. Like, I think the offense moved through the air really well. Run game wasn't so great. However, you have, 1 4-yard Chase Daniel rush, 3 Larry Roundtree rushes, which God bless him.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, especially because it's garbage time, he just can't get over 1.6 yards per carry. I think it was 1.5 yards a carry last week, 1.3 this week. Herbert, 2 carries, -1 yards, but that's, obviously we know why. But Eckler 3.1, Kelly 3.6, not great, but I never felt like it was detrimental for the team that they weren't running super, super well.
Yeah.
So Staley said he got pulled out normally in his press. Let's see. Here we go. Brandon Staley and Joey Bosa. Joey was taken out like the rest of the guys that we were trying to phase out in the game. Was he? Because he was taken out pretty early.
Yeah. He didn't play the entire second half, pretty much.
Okay, sure, Brandon. Anything else from Steven written down here? Ty is asking, why did we draft Spiller? That's a great question. Next year, I really think it's because Austin Eckler was approaching that certain, touches threshold.
Yeah.
And at some point, there are very many games and there's many moments this season where Eckler maybe hasn't quite been himself. I think the last couple of games you can see a better version of him, and there have been moments where, listen, he's fantastic, and he had 117 receptions. He didn't score a touchdown today, but he's got so many touchdowns on the season. But you can tell that maybe there's a chance that things might slip up very soon. So I think that's why they drafted Isaiah Spiller. With that said, you'd like to see him contribute at least on special teams, but I guess they don't feel that way. So Larry Roundtree is the RB3 through the postseason.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take one more question. Yeah, as Kevin Koenig points out, Spiller was like 19 when they drafted him. I think he just turned 21. Or did he just turn 20? Now I have to look this
Probably
up.
20.
That would be very young. I know some guys are like that. Isaiah Spiller age. So it says 21 in August. Gosh, he's born in 2001. Oh, I'm getting so old. I know Arjun's still young, but good for you.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen on his reaction to Mike Williams' injury. I didn't know what it was. Still don't really know what it was. I just heard back spasms, so I kind of know how that is. Sure.
If it's spasms, I think he can come back for next week. That does just seem like a lot of medical treatment on the plane ride and in the facility.
Yeah, he's a tough dude. I do think he will be out there next week, but
Yeah.
We'll see. Alrighty, then we'll leave it at that positive note, I suppose. Arjun, thank you so much for joining me, man. Everybody in the chat, I appreciate you joining us. We will be around next week on probably Wednesday to preview the game against the Jaguars for the second time this year, first time in the postseason. I'm so happy that we knew the Chargers made the postseason, so it just kind of felt like we were just waiting for this to happen. Now it's here, and we'll see who's even playing. And I can't wait to be there. And I might actually be at the game, so we'll see. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Take care. And as always, bolt up.